Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about fascism and about the United States when it comes to fascism. I'm making this video because over the past few months there's been a growing debate among historians, political scientists and journalists over whether we are entering fascism territory in the US. Some say the word fascism is being used too loosely and irresponsibly. Others warn that we are underestimating what's happening in front of us in the US and that it's important to name it as it is. So they all have a different take on it, which has got me questioning what is fascism exactly and why all these experts cannot agree. So rather than picking a side based on instinct or ideology, I wanted to do my own analysis, look at the research, the history, the warning signs, and then make my own assessment. So this isn't about sounding the alarm. It's not about scoring political points, and it's definitely not about labeling the United States a fascist country. But it is about understanding patterns, understanding the signs that we have to be aware of and be careful about before they slowly turn a country into a fascist regime. Before we start, I should say that for those who don't know me, that I'm not a US citizen. I'm French and British. I have Cameroonian parents. But I am passionate about peace and I am passionate about everything that is conducive to global harmony. So that means that on the flip side, I am worried about any conditions that is taking us away from that global peace. So now that this is clarified, let's start. Before we talk about the US, we need to be clear about the terms. What is fascism? Fascism is not just a government I don't like. You may disagree with the government. That's not because they are in power that you are in a fascist country. Fascism is not conservatism either, nor is it communism. Those are political and social ideologies that are rooted in the way economic and social policies are designed. However, at its core, fascism is a mass political movement that is built around extreme nationalism, a myth of national decline and rebirth, the rejection of pluralism, that means the existence of multiple parties, and the concentration of power in a leader who claims to embody the real people. Roger Griffin is a historian who defines fascism as palingenetic ultranationalism, which means a belief in national rebirth through purification and struggle. And that idea of rebirth matters. Fascism isn't just about control, it's about transformation. Now, fascism is not the same thing as totalitarianism. The author, Hannah Arendt, makes this very clear in her famous essay, The Origins of Totalitarianism. And she says that totalitarianism strives not toward despotic rule over men, but toward a system in which men are superfluous. So totalitarianism aims at total domination of society, while fascism can move in that direction, but it doesn't always get there. And fascism is also not the same as authoritarianism. Authoritarian regimes want obedience. Fascist movements want emotional mobilization, they want identity, and they want enemies. So these distinctions matter because a country can show fascist tendencies without being a fascist state. Before I go through the signs of fascism, one important point to make is that there is no single checklist that magically tells you whether a country is fascist or not. But political scientists and historians do point to recurring patterns. These are warning signs. They don't guarantee an outcome, but when several of them appear together, history tells us to pay attention. So, sign number one, the myth of national decline and rebirth. Fascist movements begin with a story. The nation was great, then it was weakened, humiliated, or betrayed, and now it must be restored. In the United States, the clearest and most explicit example of this rhetoric is the MAGA movement itself. Make America Great Again is not just a slogan, it is a narrative. The narrative of America was great, then it lost its greatness, and that only a radical political rupture can restore it. This kind of language, restoration, rebirth, taking the country back, is a core feature of fascist ideology historically. That does not mean that everyone who supports MAGA is a fascist, let's be clear about this, but it does mean that the structure of the rhetoric closely matches a well-documented historical pattern. So our assessment, this sign is clearly present, although it is actively challenged and criticized. Sign number 2, a charismatic leader above institutions. Here, the danger is when institutions are treated as obstacles and loyalty replaces law. Hannah Arendt warned that this is where democracy starts to waver. She actually says the substitution of loyalty for legality is the beginning of tyranny. In the US, we've seen repeated attacks on courts, election officials, civil servants, and investigators when they constrain political power. At the same time, and this matters, institutions still push back, courts rule against powerful actors, and elections still change outcomes. So our assessment is that this pattern is partially present and is strongly resisted. Before I move forward, if you believe in peace, please take a second to subscribe to our channel. We want to provide inspiring content that drives real impact, and by simply subscribing, you're already contributing to that mission and helping our message reach more people. So thank you. Now back to the topic. Number 3, scapegoating and the us versus them thinking. Fascist politics thrives on enemies. Minorities, immigrants, journalists, academics, political opponents, they are framed not as rivals, but as threats. Hannah Arendt, again, described these as objective enemies, people targeted not for what they've done, but for what they represent. In the US, this kind of language has become increasingly normal. The talk of real Americans versus traitors, dehumanizing metaphors, dehumanizing language, the idea that some people simply don't belong. So our assessment is that this sign is clearly present and it is intensifying. Sign number 4, the delegitimization of truth. When people can no longer agree on basic facts, power rushes in to fill the gap. In the US, we see parallel realities, media labeled as enemies of the people, elections dismissed without evidence, expertise treated as corruption, attempts to make people not believe their own eyes or their own ears. And the expression alternative facts was coined by Kellyanne Conway back in January 2017. And it was very criticized at the time because it represented a shift towards a post-truth landscape in politics where objective evidence is disregarded. So our assessment is that this sign is strongly present and it is intensifying. Number 5, glorification and normalization of violence. This is when violence is praised as necessary, cleansing, and as proof of loyalty. Law becomes secondary to force. This isn't only about celebrating violence, it's also about tolerating it. In the US, we've seen political violence minimized or excused. That was the case in Charlottesville in 2017 with the quote, there were fine people on both sides. It was also exemplified with the events of the Capitol in January 2021, with the clemency of the rioters who had committed crimes, who were imprisoned, but then were pardoned and got released to the shock of a large swath of the US population. We have armed intimidation at political events, and we've got the recent cases of 2 American citizens, Renee Good and Alex Pretty, who were killed last month in Minnesota during encounters involving enforcement authorities, with serious questions raised about accountability. So even when violence isn't openly praised, the danger lies in how quickly it becomes part of the normal background of everyday life. So our assessment is that this sign is present, although so far, let's say, at the margins, but it is deeply concerning. Sign number 6, erosion of democratic institutions. This doesn't have to look like tanks in the streets. It looks like gerrymandering, like attempts to overturn election results, like pressure on courts and election officials, and also like rules that quietly change to accommodate and to entrench power. At the same time, US institutions still function, albeit unevenly, imperfectly, of course, but they are real and operating. So our assessment is that there is clear erosion, but also real institutional resistance. Sign number 7, the erosion of civil liberties. This is when emergency powers have a way of sticking around. In the US, we have expanded surveillance, aggressive policing at protests, and restrictions justified by security that have been growing for decades, especially since 9/11. This isn't uniquely fascist, but it creates fertile ground. So our assessment is that this is partially present, not decisive on its own, though. Sign number 8, mass rituals and symbolic politics. Fascist movements turn politics into performance, with rallies, with chants, with symbols, belonging that takes over debate, emotion that replaces deliberation. Fascism is performative, almost theatrical. And in the US, symbolic politics is intense. Factions are polarized, although they are still plural. So there is no single movement that monopolizes national identity. So our assessment is that this is present, although not totalizing. Sign number 9, permanent crisis narrative. Everything is framed as an emergency. Every election is the last one. Every opponent is an existential danger. Fear becomes the organizing principle. This is visible in the US political rhetoric, the constant claim that election fraud is widespread, the constant demonization of immigrants, and the use of the expression the enemy from within. Also the loose branding of normal citizens as domestic terrorists, even when there are no apparent acts that have been committed that would warrant such a label. So our assessment is that there are some signs, although we may not feel that they have invaded social and political layers of people's lives as to settle and maintain an atmosphere of permanent crisis. Some may disagree, of course. So number 10th and last sign, gradual normalization. This is the quietest sign, but arguably the most dangerous. Each violation feels survivable. Each norm broken feels temporary until people adjust. Hannah Arendt warned that domination advances not only through terror, but through habituation. So our assessment is that indeed it is present. There is normalization of those signs that we have listed. Although it is uneven, it is real. So there you go, folks. This is the big picture. The United States is obviously not a fascist state, but it is showing multiple signs of democratic erosion. And history tells us that erosion is how democracies die. So, to conclude, I want to be very clear here. This is not a prediction, it's not a declaration of doom, but it is a warning. Erosion of democracy is erosion of justice, and erosion of justice is erosion of equality. Erosion of equality leads to social fragmentation and ultimately to the breakdown of peace, which takes shape in the form of civil unrest or even civil war. That's why this matters. The Peace Compass exists to help us understand how peace is built and how it is broken. Democracy isn't just a system of government, it is a culture, and cultures survive only if people choose them. In the next video, I'll share some ideas of simple things you can do to protect democracy in your everyday life. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified of future videos. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.